Thank you for joining us this evening. Regular scheduled council meeting of the Park City City Council on September 22nd, 2020 at 7 p.m. Marla, would you call the roll?
John Lanier.
Here.
George Glover.
Here.
Ben Salcetta.
Here.
Melvin Kerr.
Here.
Tom Jones.
Here.
George Capps.
Here.
Brandy Bailey.
Here.
Jim Schrader.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Tonight, Pastor Gary Whitney is going to lead in the invocation, and Councilmember Tom Jones is going to lead in the pledge. If everybody please stand.
Shall we pray? Our Heavenly Father, we give thanks to you for the opportunity to gather together in this public occasion in honor of the great republic that has been established in recognition of the freedoms that you have established in this land. We thank you, Heavenly Father, for those who've been willing to give their lives in service to this community, and we pray that you will bless the deliberations of this hour and lead them by the wisdom of your Spirit, and may they act in the best benefit of the people of this community and of our nation, we ask in Jesus' name, amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. The first item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Tom?
I'd move we approve the agenda as presented.
And George?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, I would ask, every council member has a sheet in front of you. I'd like to add item 14 to discuss and consider the approval of a part-time building inspector position. Tom, would you be okay with that?
I would accept that amendment.
George?
I'll second it.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 8-0. We don't have anything for awards or presentations this evening, and we do have a couple of people signed up for public forum. Gary, did you have something that you want to come back up? Come on.
Mr. Mayor and the members of the Park City Council, thank you for your service to this community in your capacities on this council and in city government. You and the rest of the people who work here and the law enforcement department are providing a critical and necessary role in the republic of our country. Today is a significant day in the history of my faith tradition. On this day in 1823, the modern world first learned about a record which is now known as the Book of Mormon. I mention this to note the historical event because it bears on the reason that I am willing and honored to come and pray over this council and the city government. In the Book of Mormon, the land upon which now stands the United States of America is described as a land of promise. This was not a new concept in the American mind of 1823, but is more distant in the minds of many of the citizens of our country today. The land will remain a place of peace and blessing as long as the citizens of this land honor the God of this land, who is Jesus Christ. We believe that the Constitution of this nation was inspired by God, and in honoring that document and the principles of human agency and liberty it protects, there is a blessing to be accrued by the citizens of this land. As far as the preservation of liberty and the right to pursue life, liberty, and happiness, honoring the principles of the Constitution of the United States is as important as keeping the commandments of God outlined in Christian scripture, at least as far as it goes for our government. It is for this reason that I'm pleased and honored to have been able to pray for you at this meeting and to uphold you to God. Now more than ever, there is a need for citizens and leaders in this nation to seek and hold to an enduring foundation of principles which support order, tranquility of person and place, life and liberty. Ultimately, this is found in faith in Jesus Christ. It is not to be found in casting aside the Constitution of this nation in riots, violence, and chaos. We long for peace and for justice, not revenge, and not at the expense of mercy. Mercy we need most of all. We believe that mercy is found in keeping the commandments of God and faith in Jesus Christ. Not all hold this belief, but in following the principles of freedom laid down in the Constitution and honoring the ideals of that document, there is a national semblance of mercy so needed by this land. May God bless and support you in your duties as you serve this community, and I would ask you to always remember the principles of this land in the decisions that you make. Thank you.
Thank you. Terry Ford?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to take a minute to say how I thought the concert, I don't know what the city had to do with it, but they mentioned Park City a lot at it, how good it went off Saturday, or Friday, I guess it was, at Hartman Arena. And everybody I talked to seemed to think it was real nice and would like to do it some more. Probably not this year with the weather, but I just wanted, I think people should see something good, they should talk about it instead of just hearing all the bad stuff that goes around. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ford.
Right.
Debbie
Mayor?
Jacobs?
Mayor, could I make a comment?
Yes.
They're planning 3 more of those, and I think C&T contributed to funding on that to help bring the bands, so.
I know they talked about Park City about that.
Right, and there was 4 planned, and I think there's going to be 3 more, so.
Ms. Jacobs, you can go ahead and come up.
Okay, this is just would be a consideration for you guys. My name's Debbie Jacobs, and I live on West Parkview. About a month or so ago, my neighbor told me that there was a family of 5 raccoons and a skunk in her backyard. The raccoons were eating the bird food she was putting out for the hummingbirds and the orioles. The very next evening, the skunk walked down my driveway while my dog and I were outside. So we didn't get sprayed, which was a good thing, but so I called code enforcement to see about getting the skunk removed. And I was informed they're not trained to remove any wildlife and gave me some phone numbers to call. So I asked if there was a charge to have them removed, and she said she didn't know, so I looked up one of the companies, and they charge $150 to remove the wildlife. Now raccoons and skunks tear up your yard. They also carry various diseases. I mean, skunks are notorious for carrying rabies, but they also carry listeria, canine distemper, canine hepatitis, other diseases that will cause you to have flu-like symptoms, and they can cause kidney and liver problems. Should you get bit by the skunk, you have to have a series of 4 rabies shots. Immediately, 3 days after, 7 days, and 14. The cost for the shots are anywhere from $400 to $1,400 per shot. Now, if your child or grandchild was in the backyard playing and the skunk happened to come out and they thought it was a cat and they get bit, the skunk runs off, now they have to go through rabies shots. I wouldn't want to go through them, let alone put a kid through it. So I think that it should be a consideration that you guys could look at maybe adding a line item to the code enforcement to either train the animal control people to remove them, or have a line item that if something like that happens, that there would be a fund that it could be taken out of. Because I'm assuming code enforcement's under the police department as far as the budget. If not, you could maybe put it underneath the general fund, a line item. You wouldn't have to probably start off with a lot, but it's just something that I think probably should be considered because, you know, it's like, I don't want to get bit by something. So that's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And that was all we had for public forum this evening, and we'll move on to staff reports and hear from our city administrator.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just a couple things to update you on tonight. First of all, Sedgwick County, their COVID mobile testing event that was held back on September 9th was well received by the community. So much that Sedgwick County is scheduling another testing date on October 14th. It will be held in the same location at the same time, which is in front of the old Atwood store, from 8:30 in the morning to 11 o'clock in the morning. And again, as a reminder, this event is not a drive-through type event, but rather a walk-up event. On that same day, on October 14th, that is when we are tentatively scheduling the Downtown Visioning Workshop for Council, Confluence, key stakeholders, and local area experts to start the planning process of the land adjacent to the City Administration Center. Additional information about the workshop and a full agenda and itinerary will be sent to each of you separately in the next couple of days. Other upcoming dates for the calendar include, first of all, this weekend, September 26th, is the Park City Fall Garage Sale. The city's annual shredding event will be on October 17th here at City Hall from 9 a.m. to noon. The brush and tree limb event for the fall is on October 3rd from 8 o'clock to 1 o'clock. Fall Festival will happen in Hat McLean Park on October 24th from approximately 2 o'clock p.m. to 7 o'clock p.m. And then I'm just going to throw these dates out here as well for voting. The advance vote center dates are from Tuesday, October 27th to October 31st, which is a Saturday. The voting times on Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday are from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. On Wednesdays, it's from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And on Saturday, it is from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And that is all prior to the general election, which will be on November 3rd here at City Hall, City Administration Center from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. And finally, one of tonight's agendas, item number 13, is regarding the streets inventory and recommended improvements for 2021. As you may recall, the mayor asked staff to present options at this meeting, and this past Friday when the agenda was being compiled, there was some confusion, quite honestly, on my part. So what's in the packet or posted online is not actually correct. So each of you were provided a corrected copy sent to you separately, and as far as an updated staff memo and recommendations, and there's a hard copy for each of you at your seats. Pending any questions, sir, that's all I have.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Sean?
Can you give the times of the brush and limb cleanup, please?
Brush and limb is from 8 a.m. to 1 o'clock p.m.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Not seeing anything else, that brings us to the consent agenda. Is there a motion? Jim?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
And George?
I'll second the motion.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 8-0. That brings us to new business, item 7, which is discuss and consider the audit proposal. Dee?
Good evening. A request for proposal for auditing services was distributed to 17 certified public accounting firms for the 5-year period starting with this year through 2024. The RFP indicated that although price for services would be an important factor, a number of other factors would also be considered. For example, staff qualifications, prior audit experience, quality control, and so forth. We received proposals from 6 of those accounting firms. A committee consisting of Councilmember Brandy Bailey, Assistant City Administrator, HR Manager Dana Walden, and myself, Finance Director Dee Grunder, reviewed the proposals and narrowed it down to the 2 firms that we unanimously agreed most closely fit the factors that we outlined in the RFP. The committee interviewed those 2 firms, checked references, and then again unanimously agreed that the firm of BKD LLP was the best fit for the City of Park City. We have a partner and senior manager with BKD here with us tonight. So I, and the other 2 committee members would be glad to respond to any questions if you have any. But I would like to tell you about an error I made in the staff summary before we do that. I listed the top 2 firms on there, and in the heading over the single audit, I put per major program. I shouldn't have put that in the heading. That should have been only beside the second audit firm. BKD actually bid 1 set fee. They did not state how many major programs, so the per major program would be with the second firm. So the amount that is shown in that column for the second firm is $4,000 per year. So per year per major program. So if we had 2 major programs, it would be $8,000. Okay, so any questions for us?
Does anyone have any questions? Okay. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Teresa Seymour. I am the senior manager, and I'm the one that's going to be getting into the dirtiness and all the fun stuff of the audit. So we appreciate you choosing our firm. We plan to do a great job, and if you guys have any questions at all of how the audit goes or anything that you would like us to be looking at, we will come to you and ask that during that first year of the audit, and then as the years go on, we might just interview 1 or 2 of you, but if at first you guys have anything that you would specifically like us to look at, we welcome that. So if there's any questions, I can take any questions.
Anybody have any questions? Is there a recommendation from the council? Brandy?
I move to approve the proposal of BKD LLP for audit services for 5-year period commencing with the audit of the year ending December 31st, 2020 and continuing through the year ending December 31st, 2024.
And Jim?
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 8-0.
Thank you
very
Council.
much. Thank you, Dee. That brings us to item 8, which is discuss and consider a resolution providing authorization to fund the cost of improvements to 61st Street North from Broadway to the Wichita Valley Center Floodway Bridge. Garth?
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Garth Herman with Gilmore & Bell, the city's bond counsel legal firm. Before you is a resolution to basically authorize bond financing for all or portion of the costs of improvements to 61st Street, generally from Broadway to the Wichita Valley Center floodway project. This is part of a larger project. The amount that is authorized in this resolution is for $2,975,000. That represents the city's portion of the overall project cost. It's my understanding the balance of that is going to come from KDOT, from a cost-sharing arrangement with them and their partnership on the project. This authorization for this project is done under what's called the main trafficway statutes. So in essence, by a previous ordinance, the city has designated 61st Street within the city as a main trafficway, thereby allowing it to come in on a project-by-project basis to authorize future improvements to that main trafficway. Since you've already designated the street as a main trafficway, now all you have to do is adopt a resolution in order to authorize bond financing for this project. This simply authorizes the financing for that. Down the road, when it becomes most advantageous to the city to actually enter into that financing and sell those bonds to get the money in the bank, that'll happen at a later date. This basically just says the city declares its intent to move forward with this project and to finance its portion of the cost. So with that being said, I'll stand for any questions.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Garth? No?
I was going to make a motion. There aren't any questions. Okay, I would move that we approve Resolution 1056-2020, a resolution of the City of Park City, Kansas, authorizes certain main trafficway improvements and providing for the payment of the cost thereof. And the amount that I wrote down is $2,975,000.
Jim?
I second that.
George, did you have a comment?
No.
Okay.
Sorry, just for clarification, this is not the 61st and Broadway roundabout area, right? This is
that project, yes.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. Marlo, would you call the roll?
John Lanier.
Aye.
George Glover.
Aye.
Ben Salcetta.
Aye.
Melvin Kerr.
Aye.
Tom Jones.
Aye.
George Capps.
Aye.
Brandy Bailey.
Aye.
Jim Schrader.
Aye. And that resolution passes 8-0. Thank you, Garth.
Thank you all very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. That brings us to item 9, which is discuss and consider the Kansas Gas franchise agreement. Doug?
Mayor and council, this is a franchise ordinance. It's a franchise agreement, and we do that by way of an ordinance that's published. The existing natural gas franchise is set to expire on May 1st of 2021, and staff has been in discussion with Kansas Gas Service about renewing that. What you have before you is a franchise with Kansas Gas Service for a period of 10 years. That's opposed to the prior franchise agreement, which was 20 years. The 5% franchise fee remains the same as it was in the prior agreement. And I would recommend that you adopt the ordinance and approve this franchise ordinance agreement with Kansas Gas Service Company.
Okay, are there any questions? Jim?
I just had one question, and that was if there's any ability to negotiate the 5% up.
Well, the 5% is a pass-through, so it's not paid by the city, it's paid by the natural gas users. So we would be increasing the fee that's paid by citizens in the city, and I don't think there's any reason to do that. 5% is a pretty conservative franchise fee across the board. Several cities are higher, but not too many are lower than that. It's a standard.
Yes, sir. In our research, and part of the reason why this is coming up, this one's due in May of 2021, but the next item up on the agenda is for the next franchise, and it's expiring late this year, so that's why we decided to do both of them at the same time. But as we're researching and benchmarking practices around from various cities, there are a couple cities out there that are at 6%, but the vast majority of them are at 2 or 3 or 5%. So 5% is what we had done for the last 20 years and felt that that was consistent to keep it at that. Because as Doug stated, this is a pass-through. So if we're increasing this, we're actually increasing it on our businesses and residents. So.
Yeah, I appreciate the clarification. I wouldn't want it to be something added to it. I thought, at first read, I thought it was a cut of what the utility company was getting.
Yes, sir.
Which I would have chased. Anyway, that's all I have.
Okay. Ben?
I make a motion to approve ordinance 1106-2020 granting to Kansas Gas Services Division of 1 Gas Inc. and its successors and assigns a natural gas franchise.
Tom?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. Marlo, would you call the roll?
John Lanier.
Aye.
George Glover.
Aye.
Ben Salcetta.
Aye.
Melvin Kerr.
Aye.
Tom Jones.
Aye.
George Capps.
Aye.
Brandy Bailey.
Aye.
Jim Schrader.
Aye.
And that ordinance passes 8-0. And that brings us to item 10, which is discuss and consider the EVERGY franchise agreement. Doug?
Mayor and council, again, this is an extension of an existing franchise agreement that the city has with Westar, which is now EVERGY Incorporated. This franchise was for 10 years from 2010, set to expire in late December of this year. And again, this has been continued on for a term of 10 years, and the existing franchise fee of 5% is again duplicated in the proposed franchise ordinance that's in front of you. And staff would recommend that you adopt the franchise ordinance granting EVERGY an electric franchise within the city of Park City.
Yeah.
I move to approve ordinance 1107-2020 granting to EVERGY Kansas South, Inc., a Kansas corporation, its successors or assigns an electric franchise.
George?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. Marla, would you call the roll?
John Lanier.
Aye.
George Glover.
Aye.
Ben Salcetta.
Aye.
Melvin Kerr.
Aye.
Tom Jones.
Aye.
George Capps.
Aye.
Brandy Bailey.
Aye.
Jim Schrader.
Aye.
And that ordinance passes 8-0. Thank you, Marla. That brings us to item 11, which is discuss and consider a contract with PEC for the preliminary design and engineering of the 77th Street improvements. Sean?
Yes, sir. As council is aware, in a joint effort, Park City and Valley Center, with the help of PEC, submitted an economic development program application to KDOT to reconstruct Ford Street, otherwise known as 77th Street, from the bridge over the Wichita Valley Center floodway all the way to Interstate 135. Valley Center's goals for this project are to address the failing pavement and narrow road conditions along Ford Street, as well as align the offset intersection that currently exists at Seneca. Park City's goals are to reconstruct 77th Street and Broadway intersection with a safer, more effective, and efficient roundabout design, as well as make improvements to the road surface east of Broadway. Thanks to Project Starship, our application has been accepted by KDOT, and they will be providing 70% of the construction cost. Additionally, both Valley Center and ourselves were involved in conferences over the last 2 weeks with Sedgwick County, and they have agreed to help and participate by covering all the required engineering inspection services for this project. They are KDOT certified inspectors, and they're covering that, which is approximately $507,000 worth of in-trust trade. Sedgwick County is also considering right now providing additional funding, but they're awaiting the bid closing on 3 separate in-house projects that they have to see if there will be sufficient funding, because for all of us, this was an unbudgeted planned event. The total lump sum fee for the scope of services for the preliminary engineering design is $354,400. Park City's portion is $107,740, and Valley Center will be discussing and considering the approval of this contract at their next council meeting, which is the first week in October, October 6th. As I indicated, this is unbudgeted. This improvement plan was not part of our capital improvement project list, but we are proposing that it is paid for out of the capital projects fund. Staff recommends approval of PEC's fee and scope of service, and authorizing the mayor to execute a contract between the 3 parties, Valley Center, PEC, and Park City, in an amount for our portion not to exceed $107,600. Let me check, because I got 2 different numbers here. One says 740, one says 640, but. Park City's portion is $107,740.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Sean? This is just, we've already got our 61st Street project going, and we've talked about going ahead and getting 77th, and then I think in the future we'll be looking at 85th, so a lot of big things happening there. Tom?
I was going to go ahead and make a motion that we approve a contract with PEC for preliminary design and engineering of 77th Street improvements for the Park City portion of $107,740.
And Jim?
I have no questions, so would second that.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 8-0. Thank you. That brings us to item 12, which is discuss and consider sidewalk repairs and improvements on Independence Street and the new sidewalk construction at Jardine Park. Zach?
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you're all aware, Council had set aside some money the last couple of years for sidewalks, and areas that were discussed had come up, and one of the major areas that were brought up were one of the first major areas was Independence Street between Beaumont and the north parking lot of Chisholm Trail Elementary. Well, that area is sunken below the surrounding turf, which is causing drainage issues. The sidewalks located within the existing crosswalk uneven and has broken concrete areas. The crosswalk located within the intersection of Beaumont and Independence currently has 2 landings on it, of 2 of the 3. One in the northeast corner and one in the southwest corner, and neither one of those landings are ADA compliant. So that's the first project that's mentioned in this here agenda item. sent out proposals for this. The second one is, like it says, in September 2019, staff presented plans to council for improvements to Jardine Park. RFPs were sent out to 6 area contractors requesting proposals for construction of a new 6-foot walking path going from Mobile Drive to a new parking lot proposed for 6220 Independence Drive, with the construction of a walking path and a 24-foot by 16-foot concrete approach for a new parking lot to be constructed there. Out of the 6 proposal RFPs sent out, we received 3 back. You can see the 3 that were sent back to us, the contractors that sent them back in the prices. You can see on one of those, I'd kind of flip-flopped them around. You can see where I'd done that. Both of these are budgeted items. The one thing I'll have to say is I believe that one of them will come out of streets and the other will come out of parks. Is that correct?
Streets and Highway Capital Fund.
Okay. So other than that, I put the bids for both projects there. I've included aerials of both projects. If you guys, I'm open for questions if you have any questions on these.
Does anybody have any questions for Zach? George?
I don't have any questions, but I'll be happy to move to approve the proposal from Prado Construction for both projects in the amount of $47,663.50 to be paid out of the Special Streets and Highway Capital Outlay Fund.
Ben?
Second.
Awesome. So,
I think there was a misread on the dollar amount.
do what?
The dollar amount?
I couldn't. What did you say?
Dollar amount.
The dollar amount's wrong.
The amount that he,
860.
yeah, he put 680.
So we just want the dollar amount of $47,863.50, right, George?
I apologize.
And Ben? Okay. This is exciting, and I talked to you in the last meeting. We're going to start rolling on some stuff. So, Zach, thank you very much. We're addressing a couple of the council's concern, and then we're getting started on our park project. It's a great thing. We have a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 8-0. That brings us to item 13, which is discuss and consider 2021 street project options.
All right, once again, I'm here. In July of this year, council approved an assessment program, a road and replacement plan with the goal of prioritizing necessary repairs and outlining the associated cost to return each road to an acceptable level, whereas any future distress could be addressed through a standardized rehabilitation plan. During council's last meeting, staff was directed to prepare and be ready to present options to support that plan for CY 2021. Attached are 3 different options for council's consideration. For option 1, staff proposedly had omitted Old Lawrence Road, but then went from the top of the prioritized list working down. For option 2, staff chose a top 10 impactful street combined with a handful of smaller projects given the budgetary constraints. And finally, for option 3, staff chose several smaller projects representative of each ward. And each option, the remaining balance from the $250,000 budgeted for CY 2021 would be used for sidewalk repair and construction to support the connectivity plan. And as you can see, as we start off option 1, you've got the roads listed that we chose for option 1, and the dollar amount and the type of project that would be done to that road, and the remaining amount for sidewalks for the grand total of the budgeted amount for CY 2021. And then along with that, you've got a printout of our road plan, kind of broke down, kind of shows you exactly, you know, where we were and how we had it with our road assessment program and the spreadsheet. how that works along with it. And the same along with option 2. So if you have any questions about any of these options, I'll be more than glad to answer these for you.
Okay, so what I asked staff to put together was to really come back to the council and give us these 3 options. One where we're just kind of tackling a big ticket item, which doesn't cover much of the city. One that kind of gives us a medium spread, and one that will give us some different parts of the city. And I want the council to come up with which option you like best. So I really want to hear from the council. I like doing this approach because staff's been able to put together a great recommendation, but then it comes back to the council to really have some good discussion here this evening on what you want to do. It could be that we haven't seen some repairs, so doing an option 3 where we get to see quite a bit of repairs going through the city could look good for our citizens and what's going on. You do a big ticket project, it looks like you're kind of staying in one area, or try to find a medium standpoint and go with an option 2 where you're kind of doing some big stuff, but then you got a couple other things so it doesn't look like you did one project all year. So I had Sean send you all the inventory plan that they had put together so that you would have time to go through and look through this, but Zach did a fine job of putting together and picking those pieces from those items. But I really want to hear from the council tonight. As you look at these 3 options, what do you want to do? Because I want to see us get some street repairs going on. I'd like to hear your input on how we get these, how we spend some of these funds. George?
Yeah, Zach, thanks for your work on this. I like all the options. For me, though, I'd like to see something done in each ward. If we show improvement, we can actually show our residents some of the things that we're actually doing in the city. I like the ability to do that with a lot of the little projects. Also with the Robinson Grove and the Fairchild project as well, but also the sidewalk additions. I like that. At this point, I'd be in favor of option number 3.
Okay, Tom?
I have a concern on a couple of these, like option 3, Irving, from 49th to 51st Street. You're talking about a single pass scrub. There's probably 50 or 60 square yards of road that's sunk and very badly checked and needs to be cut out and redone.
Yeah, that's and especially in that area, the Primrose area, especially some of those side roads there. Some of those areas there, we're going to have to go in ahead of time with our own crew, and we'll go in. If it's a little bit too much for us to do, we could adjust that to where maybe a contractor go in. But we're all of these are going to be along with our crews going ahead of most of these places and crack sealing ourselves. I mean, because we're not going to stop crack sealing. We've got the crack sealer. It was delivered yesterday. We're going to crack seal ahead of, like the scrub seal, we'll crack seal ahead of it. But we definitely, like you said, on Irving right there, we'll go in there, we'll clean up that area before they would even go in there and scrub seal. Once they lay down the scrub seal, Irving is one of those roads that, it was a dirt road before, and it's been scrub sealed. And so maybe, we cut out those areas. We put, another 5 to 7 years on the life of that road until we can, get something else done to it. So
that specific road was done, it was dirt, and they did that because the bridge was out on Broadway.
Right.
So they did like a 2-inch over dirt, and so where the trash trucks and some other vehicles have gone in there, they've squashed it on the side pretty bad.
Yeah, so we'd definitely go in there and address those issues where they'd sunk them down before they went in there and did any kind of treatment to it.
Okay.
So.
And then on the other one, I wanted to go look at it from Grove to Hillside on Fairchild and option 2. About half of that from Hillside halfway to Grove is like 5 years old.
Right. See,
that's
those are
in bad shape because that had a lot of wrap in it when they poured it.
What's that?
It had a lot of wrap in the asphalt when they poured it. They were supposed to extend the warranty, and I don't know whatever happened to that.
To the warranty?
The people that did the work, they were allowed to put wrap in it. The city allows so much percentage of it.
Right,
in
and
asphalt.
that's one thing That was.
I'm
that
just
was
wondering
before-
if the
right.
road's coming apart, or if we're just gonna do the whole road and do a 2-inch overlay over all
Yeah,
that.
see, I'm not aware of the warranty on the road or anything like that. It would just be, I mean, those were just.
It
the
may
way
be
we-
gone, but some other issues may have
Right.
created a deterioration of that.
And that's what we would have to look at as well there when it comes to that. But yeah, because that was well before my time as far as that. We'd have to look into what would be causing that deterioration, because that's the better half of that road anyway. Because the west half of that road is by far worse. But yeah, we'd just have to look into that because I had no idea about the warranty on that road. But
Well, I would say part of that's only 5 or 6 years old,
Yeah.
maybe, something like that. Okay.
George?
Well, without going into a long deal about it, I prefer option number 3. It looks to me like, we're kind of giving each part of the city a little bit there. And looking at them, that looks like the best deal to me.
Jim?
Question, Zach.
Yes, sir.
Well, comparing back to the original list, if we, option 1 tackles the 2 highest priorities on the original list. So if we choose option 2 or 3 and skip, what was the 2 highest priorities, Frontenac and Gary and Ravina and Half McLean Park, are we skipping over any larger problems? I'm trying to decide if there was a 1 through 7 priority on this, or if it was on the highlighted items. Or if it was just they all had equal issues and we needed to tackle them all. I don't want to skip down the list and just have a really problem street that we skipped over.
well, the road scoring system we used was from the Asphalt Association, and the way that the scoring went, the type of scoring system scores. And the way it lays out, the top roads do come out being the most long-term, worst roads overall. I mean, that's telling you that, hey, overall these roads have the worst, top to bottom deficiencies as far as like your base and everything else, because the type of problems those roads have. I mean, you got either your transverse or longitudinal cracks, and those usually score. A stronger, heavier score, because those tend to be from the top all the way down a base issue versus maybe alligator cracks or something like that. That would be a top 1 or 2. So the top part of that list, and then the way that the mayor lined out to Sean, the way he wanted to do it was option 1 was going to be a strictly top to bottom. We'll go prioritize option 1. Take what we can from 1, 2, and 3, and then option 2 is going to be, the way that and that's why we did option 1 the way we did.
Would you have any concerns on these top 2 if we didn't do them in 2021? Will they last till 2022?
I mean, I would say so, yeah.
Okay.
To me, if I can, the inventory that we did is just a broad brush at that point in time.
Yeah.
And it gives council something for them to consider. Now, every couple of years, we're going to need to go back and look at that inventory. Some of the roads will hold up better than what we had thought they were going to hold up, and some of the roads are going to deteriorate worse than what we thought they would deteriorate. But that's why we wanted to give you the options, because of the fact we understand we have limited budget constraints in this. We've got $250,000 to try and either, which roads do we want to tackle? We could do one large project and be done and say, hey, there we go. Or we could do a myriad of them. Any one of the 3 options, they're all populated with those that are in the top third, if not even farther up the list of areas that we need to address. So if we don't hit the top 1 and 2, because we specifically took out Old Lawrence, because, that's the worst road in town, but nobody drives down it, and it's not as impactful as the other roads in the community are. So we took that one out. There's flexibility and discretion for this council to determine how they would like to see that going forward. Next year, we'll come back and we'll revise the list, update it, and we may have, next year, you may say, we want to do 2 major roads and call it good, because this year we did a smattering of projects. So there's flexibility built into it.
Okay, that helps me make up my mind. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
One of the things that I want everybody to keep in mind is, as I've sat here over the last 18, 24 months now, we haven't done a lot in the street and road repair. if you look at what's going on and the expansion of our city in the next 18 months, we can expect our budget to increase. We're tackling some big ticket projects, might get us further down the list than where we sit today. But I would agree with George and George that we haven't done a lot of street stuff lately, and getting a good mix throughout the city that prolongs the streets of more of our inventory, and then we look at our tax base growth that we expect to see over the next 18 months, and we come back and do budget again, we should be able to increase the budget line in street and maintenance, and then go back and tickle some big ticket items. Ben?
I think I like all three options that have been presented there for various portions of it. I guess the Hat McLean Park one is one that, I mean, that's it's fun to drive through Hat McLean, period, especially when you get to that area over the creek where that tends to be bad. My concern would be is that's, and the mayor just alluded to this, as we get a year down the road, we might see a big enough budget increase where we can go back and tackle this. I just hate to see, I'm fine with 3, I'm good with 3, I like the idea, but I would hate to see Hat McLean get pushed down too far, because that is kind of the mecca of where we do a lot of our city activities and such at, and so having a good welcoming place where cars aren't getting all tore up trying to drive through, bottoming out there at that spot would be good and helpful. So I'm fine with 3, I like 3, but I think that Hat McLean ought to be something that we consider up at the top, getting that done just for the overall appearance and work of our city.
Okay, Tom?
I was going to say I like 3 too, because it's preservation and we're doing something to try to preserve the roads. I sounded kind of offbeat on it a little while ago, but I just wanted to let council know there's some other work that needs to be done before you go slurry seal. Right. And we need to be postured for that when it happens. So.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a good point you brought up, and it's good that Zach was able to answer that and show that he was aware of it and actually has some plans to go in there and do some prep work beforehand. So that's good too. Brandy?
I was going to just say, the mayor said that we don't see a lot of street work done over the last few years. And so I think doing option 3, the majority of it, a good chunk of it, people can actually see that we're out there working on the streets, because that's one of the biggest complaints that I hear around is, you know, we don't ever do anything to our streets. Now we have a street sweeper so that can get out there and clean up the streets. And if they see us out there using their tax money to improve the streets, I think that's, for the first year, I think the option 3 is the best option. And then going forward, trying to tackle some of the more top projects.
John?
Yeah. I'll share the concern that Tom mentioned about Fairchild, and you know, these areas. I say this every time when we talk about streets and stuff, but this is the night that I guess I want to point out that why I strongly oppose dragging specials out for 20 years, because streets rarely last 20 years, and that's what they're paying for. But while I'm saying that, I will say on Fairchild, from Grove to Upchurch, it's a little over 20 years now. And obviously, it's deteriorated pretty bad. And I think there's some underground water and some things like that that have hurt that first block. That I know it's not on option 3, but I got to say that, you know, really from Grove to Poston would be great. But
Poston is really
but I say a pretty high priority on Upchurch. But a lot of the streets in there really. A lot of this is truck traffic and stuff that's driving the main route that people are cutting through there. So I'm favorable of 3, but I would like to see somehow if we can find a way, if there's some extra funds available at the end of the year or something, that we can take a pretty hard look at Fairchild. I don't know what the traffic count is on there, but I think it's pretty high. But thank you.
Jim?
I don't think I weighed in on my option before, but listening to the discussion, I'm on board with option 3 as well. And I don't know if everybody spoke, but I'd be prepared to make the motion. Go ahead. Okay. I'd move to approve option 3 to direct staff on the method of approaching street repairs for the city, Park City, Kansas in 2021.
Okay. George?
Now second the motion.
Is there any more discussion on that? The only other thing I want to come back and just add to it, one, I agree with John completely on Fairchild. I know there's parts of that street where people are backing out of their driveway where they need four-wheel drive, some chunks. So, and then also with Ben, when we talk about Ravenna, that's something I'd really want to see us come back and look at paving a parking lot or having some type of a nice parking area other than what we currently have in the park too. So that's something I'd love to see in the park as well when we look at that one. With that, we have a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 8-0. That would bring us to item 14, which is discuss and consider the approval of a part-time building inspector position. Sean?
Yes, sir. As you're all aware, during the budget discussions earlier this year, it was brought up several times by several council members that it may be due time for additional development to get some help for Bob, our building official, and that we should consider hiring additional help for the planning and building department. And it just by chance happens that staff has identified a very qualified, very experienced individual that retired from Sedgwick County a couple years ago that is interested in working with Bob and assisting him on a part-time basis. Now, there still are necessary steps that we would need to take in order to bring this individual on as a employee, but regardless, staff is still requesting, even if that does not work out, that council approve a part-time basis building inspector position. I will let you know the person that we're interested in right now, the certification skills and level of qualifications that he has is tremendous, in some particular cases more qualified than Bob himself, as he pointed out earlier today. He's ICC certified residential commercial building inspector, plumbing inspector, mechanical inspector, electrical inspector, commercial plans examiner, fire plans examiner. He's a journeyman plumber certificate, has that, as well as a master plumbing certificate. This is unbudgeted. It would come out of the general fund. The projected salary for a part-time basis is $25,500 with approximately $2,500 worth of benefits included. And staff recommends approval of the position.
Tom?
Since I've been the one that's bringing this up for several years, I'm going to make a motion that we approve the part-time building inspector position.
Would you just add that the
with
$25,000 annually?
Projected salary of $25,500 a year annually, part-time, and $2,500 worth of benefits.
They come out of the general fund?
They come out of the general fund, yes.
Okay. George?
I'll second.
Okay. Anybody else have anything to add to that? You know, this is just another exciting thing, and I know it's been talked about for a long time of adding somebody to it, but it's also exciting when staff comes to you and says, hey, we've hit that point where I need help. And so that's a good thing, because we know that the city's growing and we're going to continue to grow significantly over the next 18 months. And we have a bunch of street projects in place, so we are going to be a happening place for a while. We have a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 8-0. That will bring us to closing comments, and we'll start with Jim.
I don't have any comments tonight.
Brandy?
I don't have anything tonight.
George? Tom?
I just have one I want to bring up, and we've got our drainage committee that's off doing stuff, and down in my area, ditches have become an issue, and there's a couple spots where they're starting to affect the streets when we get a lot of rain by washing the dirt out from underneath the asphalt. It's something we need to look into. I've showed Zach one spot. They came in and cleaned the ditch out a little bit. First rain, it filled back up again. You can't even tell you did anything. But most of the culverts are full. They're 90% blocked. So at some point, we're going to have to look at it as a city. People aren't going to be happy, but the drainage isn't working. So.
Okay. Melvin?
I have nothing.
Ben?
I have nothing.
George?
Yeah, I just received information on United Way. They're taking appointments this week for their help center October session. Anybody who's been affected by the COVID, either through layoffs or furloughs, they can go ahead and make an appointment through the United Way information line by dialing 211, Monday through Friday from 8 to 5, and they will be taking appointments through September 25th, which is this Friday. I will be leaving the information with the staff here at Park City for any residents inquiring about it. Thank you.
John?
I don't have anything, but I would make a motion we adjourn.
Ben? Okay. We got a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 8-0. Thank you. Have a good evening.